everybody, and happy Friday. Today is cast on day and the start of our summer knit along. This month we are featuring the butterfly cowl, which you can see over here on the mannequin, and some of you may have opted to do the butterfly shawl, which is just a continuation of this gorgeous pattern. So welcome everybody. Hope your needles are poised and you're ready to cast on, or maybe you've cast on already. So it is designed by Marinya. She's a well-known designer on Ravelry, and if you take some time to look at her designs on her pages, you'll see that she is really well versed in using the short row technique and a lot of self-striping yarns to create these beautiful transformations that almost look like stained glass. I'll put the link below so you can have a look at the butterfly cowl pattern and also the butterfly shawl pattern. I do have a picture here of the butterfly shawl, so I'll bring that closer to the screen. And yeah, so we chose this design for this month because it does represent what most of us are going through around the world. It's very timely for our lives, and it's just to symbolize our leaving our cocoon, the isolation of our cocoon, hopefully, and our transformation is beginning into a better life, hopefully. Also, butterflies do represent endurance, change, and hope. So, and we see all of them around us every day in the summer. I'm just going to bring this picture closer so you can get an idea of what the shawl looks like if you're choosing to do this as opposed to our cowl. So this is really where the cowl finishes. So the shawl is just an extra 2 repeats with a pretty edging. So again, you can choose whichever one you like. I will be posting links and tutorials in the event page. So if you have not decided to join and you would like to receive notifications, you just have to go to our events page, which is at the top of our home page. Click on Summer Cowl, which stands for Knit Along, Butterfly Cowl. You'll see a picture of this in the header, and then you just have to click Going or Interested, and that way you'll get all the notifications from week to week. We'll be doing it for the whole month of August, and we started today with a small in-store knit along group, so they did get to cast on, and I would say they got to probably the first or second color change. So it was really great to see the colors emerging, and I promised to post pictures. I forgot to take some today, but I will post them next week. So I am going to start with, feel free to jump in anytime, say hello in the comments, let us know where you are knitting from today. I'm going to start with the techniques that we're going to cover in this knit along, just so you know if it's something that you feel you want to take on and learn, or maybe you've learned all the techniques. We'll be starting with a make one left and a make one right. Those are pretty standard increases when you're doing any sort of triangular shawl or cowl or design. So I will put a video link in the comments after the video airs, so you can see that the 2 directional increases are very important to learn, so that you create just the right sort of leaning stitches on each side of the cowl. And you will be learning a garter tab. I'm going to demonstrate that today on some thicker yarn, so hopefully you can see that on the camera. The garter tab is something that shawl designers have started to use in the last few years, and it is basically a little rectangle that fills in the gap at the top of the triangle so that you don't see that uneven edge. It just creates a nice balanced edge, and the stitches don't pull as much because they have something central to cling on to. So the garter tab is really the very first cast on section of the shawl or the cowl. and then we will be covering techniques in short rows, and the pattern is calling for what's known as the wrap and turn method, and that is pretty standard. It's a great one to use when you're doing garter stitch, which is going to be happening in the cowl and the shawl. And if you know that one and you're comfortable with it, I would say, you know, it's fine, stick with it. But if you want to be adventurous and try the German short row technique, that is another one that has less steps involved, and it's excellent for when you're doing stocking stitch, you know, if you're doing a top-down sweater, because it's completely invisible. So you might want to practice it on a small project like this, and then decide if you prefer wrap and turn or the German short row. So I will have both of those in a video link down below later on today. And then we're also going to be covering in the cowl only a tiny section of lace work, which is just before the final border, and that does not show up in the shawl, but it's a very simple lace work. And if you've never done any yarn overs before or any type of lace knitting, then this might be something that you want to try it on. There will be an option as we go further into the cowl and the shawl if you would like to try beading in your knitting. We have put in the optional beads along the outside edge. I'll bring it closer to the camera so you can see it. And you could also put them along the edging of the shawl, or maybe in the bottom section of each of the repeats. Wherever there's a strong garter stitch section, that's always nice just to add a bit of bling, because it's really meant to be worn as a statement piece, you know, almost like a piece of jewelry. And so the optional beading, okay, we're going to be doing that with a crochet hook, so I'll mention what's involved in terms of tools and size of beads for you. And then the other optional edging that we've done on this one is the picot. So that is something that you might want to try. It dresses up a very straight cast off, and it does look nice with the beads, I think. So those are all the techniques we're going to cover. So the yarn of choice for this project, to give you that transformation effect, the stained glass effect, is the Earth Yarns self-striping, unique fingering. It is extra fine, superwash merino. It's very, very bouncy. We have had a few color combos that we posted in the event page. We're now down to 3 of the main colors. For the cowl, you only need 100 grams skein, and that would be enough to do 2 cowls. Each one would look totally different, just the way the colors emerge from the skein. I mean, if this one was worked with a lot of the greens at the beginning, then your second one might have more purples and magenta at the beginning. So for the cowl, we need 100 grams, 435 yards for your main color, and a little tiny twizzle stick, which is known as a 20-gram mini skein of the coordinating fingering weight merino wool. So that can be any dyer or manufactured. You can use a 50-gram if you don't have a 20-gram, but 20-gram will cover what you need for the contrast in the cowl. If you choose to do the shawl, you will need 2 skeins of your main color in the 100-gram, 435 yards, and you'll need a full 100 gram of the contrast color, whether that's black or blue or purple. We've got somebody doing a pale pink, so we'll have pictures, and we've got somebody doing a cream for their contrast. So you're really only limited by your imagination. So I'll bring those colors closer to the camera to show to you. So that is what we need in terms of yarn, main color and contrast color. And then the needles that are going to be required for the cowl. It does state in the pattern that the suggested size is a 2.75 millimeter. We have found that the 3 millimeter just opens it up a little bit nicer and it's not quite as stiff, because generally for this weight of yarn, a 2.75 millimeter is what you would use if you're knitting socks. And if you're a sock knitter, you'll know that you want your socks to be structured, solid, not stretchy and loose. But when you're knitting something that is worn around the neck or on the torso, you want it to have a little bit more flow and movement. So for that reason, we're going to the 3 millimeter. If you're a loose knitter, then stay with the 2.75 and your tension will be just perfect. And we're using a 24-inch circular needle. The first sections of the cowl are worked back and forth, so you can also use a straight needle until the pattern tells you to join in the round, and then you will need the circular for the cowl because it's completely seamless. The shawl, you're better off just going all the way through it on the circular needle, a 32-inch or a 40-inch, just to let you work out your stitches so you can see that the pattern is transforming properly. And for the shawl, they are suggesting a 3.5 millimeter. So 3.25 if you like, if you're a bit loose, 3.5 if you're right on tension, 3.75 if you're a little bit tighter. Any of those sizes will work. And if you choose to do the optional beads, we do work them in with a crochet hook. So they are knit in. I don't want to make you think that you have to actually crochet them in. But the crochet hook is the little tool to sort of catch them. And depending on the size of your beads, I used a 1.25 millimeter. And the beads I was working with are a 6 millimeter size. So the 6 millimeter refers to the size of the bead, not the inside opening. I knew that was going to happen. So the inside opening is just thick enough that you'll see a nylon cord can fit through it, and that means a 1.25 crochet hook can fit through it. As well, you're going to need stitch markers, whatever is your favorite. And the ones that you'll really find are helpful are in our little tin here. So we'll bring them up closer. So these are called light bulb stitch markers. They open, plus they also will sit on the needle. They're very slim, so it's great for fingering weight knitting where you don't want a bulky marker. And the more stitch markers you have, the better. The designer puts a few notes and tips in her pattern, which are very helpful, and one of them is markers are essential. The other type of marker you might find handy is a progress marker. That would be something that clips in like a lobster claw, or you can use one of the light bulb markers, as long as it looks different from the markers that you're using across the row. So if you want to clip in a progress marker on the right side of your work as you're starting out in the first 6 to 8 rows, that will always give you a key if you put your knitting down and you're not sure if you left off on a right side row or a wrong side row. You just pick up your knitting. If that marker is facing towards you, you know that's your right side facing. So she does put a good tip in her pattern about that as well. Yeah, so it's just basically markers, the needles, the beads if you so desire, and the crochet hook definitely has to go with the beads, because we're not doing the old-fashioned method where we thread all the beads onto the yarn and then choose to space them out along the edge. We're doing a much easier method, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Another tip, not from the designer, well yes it is from the designer and also from me, is do not read too far ahead. Only read your pattern one paragraph at a time, because it's very overwhelming if you read ahead and you're not actually at that part. It's not going to make sense to you. So don't confuse yourself before you get there, for the shawl and for the cowl. So I think I can show you this cowl a little bit closer so you can see the gorgeous stitch work and the colors. And the beads are really iridescent. Now, does that resemble a butterfly to you? I think in a very abstract way it does. Okay, so just to point out where we're starting. So this is the cast on area here. So we're only working with our contrast color for a little while. And then we're slowly going to transition into the main color. So it's always a surprise to see what color comes out of your skein first. And the colors are both carried along. We're not going to cut and do a stop and start. We're going to carry them along the side. And next week I'm going to demonstrate on how you can carry your contrast color. You can see from here to here, it's quite a jump. So there's a very neat way to carry the yarn. If you look at the back, along here. We don't carry it in the first stitch because the dark color would show right at the edge. We carry it in the second stitch. So I'm happy to demonstrate that for you next week. I don't want to overwhelm you in the first week. There you can see the beads along the bottom. They're spaced out about every 2 inches. And we will have directions if you want to follow this formula. These are iridescent, so I was playing with them and I noticed that if I turn them, one side will give me more of a green shimmer, or if I want to accent the purple colors, then I can turn it to the opposite side. So this is a 6mm bead. Unfortunately, we do not sell the beads in the store. It would be hard to keep that kind of inventory and have so many colors for everybody, but I will put a link down below and let you know where you can buy them online. And there's a great choice of colors. The ones that I've been using are called KAL Bead Gallery, and you get 40 pieces in a set for, I think it was just under $6, and these are real glass beads. So they have a nice bit of weight to them and color interest. I didn't use all 40. I think if you're doing the shawl, yes, you're going to need at least that many. For the cowl, I used probably just under 20. So when you're out shopping, that's a good thing to keep in mind, to look for some beads. Because beads really add a bit of bling without being overstated. Okay, so I've mentioned the right side marker is very important to keep yourself straight, and extra markers, if you're going to be doing the German short row technique, you would find that the little light bulb markers that I brought to the camera are useful until you get used to where the German short row stitch is, because you will have to knit the parts of it together on the following knit row that goes right to the end of your work. If you choose to do the wrap and turn method, which will be linked in the video below, you don't really have to worry about marking that stitch, and you don't have to worry about reconciling that stitch. The little bar stays below your stitch. It's not noticeable in garter stitch, and you will not have to knit any extra pieces together on the following row. So that might help you with your decision. The other thing you can take note of too is the coloring. So the coloring in each of these skeins is a long color repeat. So one of the colors may not change when you're in the small section, but when you're in the wider section, it will change quicker. So you can customize your colors. You don't have to knit exactly from the skein the way the colors come out. The cowl, for this particular project, you have a lot of extra yardage, so you could stop the green when you're tired of it, and then you could just wind off a bit of your yarn till you found a color that was maybe more appealing to you, and then start working that in on the next row at the outside edge. Don't start in the middle of the work, start at the edge of a right side row if possible. So that's one way to change up the color a little bit and sort of pick and choose the colors that really appeal to you or to the person you're gifting it to. And I'm going to bring these colors up I haven't shown you yet. So the first color combo has more of an autumn tone. There's a really pretty lilac shade in there and some deep orange tones, gold and yellow, and about 3 or 4 shades of green. So it's very earthy and calm. And then a light taupe color. Now for the contrast color, always be sure that your contrast color does not show up in your main color, because that will look like the stitches are running into each other instead of nice sharp crisp lines to outline your color. So the dark navy would be a great contrast because it's not in the skein. And black is always a popular choice. It's very dramatic. And it does really look like stained glass. And then we also have a royal purple. And you never know, you may even just have 20 grams left over of a skein that you've used in the past in your stash, and you want to use that as your contrast. So that's color 1. This is the color that we're using in our store sample. So it does have the fun shades of lime green, Kelly green, medium rose, navy. There's a cranberry shade in there, and some purple. But you can also see with the navy, we can't use the navy as our contrast, so that's why we've gone with the black. And then for a really bright and happy pop of color, this one has turquoise, bright lime green, Kelly green, 3 shades of coral into orange. There's probably another color I can't see at the moment, but that would look awesome with the navy or the black. So here's the navy, for example. It pulls some of that turquoise color, but it's not conflicting with it. And then, of course, with the black, you can't go wrong. So I did post an example of this colorway knit up in a shawl on the event page. You might be able to see it. I'll give you the color number for reference. It is number 3014. So those are the 3 combos that we have left, and again, you can play around with each skein and create your own magic transformation. So what I've done is just started a little sample for the garter tab, so you can see it in the thicker yarn. So basically we've just cast on 3 stitches and we've knit 6 rows, garter stitch, knitting every row. And then the pattern is going to ask you to pick up 3 stitches along the left side of your tab. So that's going down this side. So I'm just going to point out what you would be trying to aim for. So you're looking at the little bars. There's 3 of them in a row. So you want to pick up your first stitch under bar number 1, wrap the yarn around, knit it through, bar number 2, same thing, and bar number 3. That makes sure that they're evenly spaced and your edge is not too flimsy and it's not too bulky. And then you're going to turn your work. I think what I'll do is I'll knit the 3 and then get to the next level for you. It's such a tiny little thing, but it can be fiddly because we're not used to knitting in such a small area. Okay, so I've picked up the 3 on the side under those little bars, and now I'm instructed to pick up 3 along the cast on edge. So that's really just picking up 1 stitch for every stitch that you've cast on, and that will bring you to the beginning of your tail end. So a lot of stretching and maneuvering to get into the 3. Okay, and then you're back to the beginning. And then you would just count your stitches and make sure that you have all 9. And you're ready to start knitting. So this will stretch out and create a nice straight piece across the top of your shawl or your cowl. And it's also a great add-on if you're doing a shawl that doesn't call for a garter tab. You can always put one in if it's a triangle shape, not a wedge and not a rectangular. Okay, so now we're going to get to our trivia. So what's happening with our knit-alongs is that we have a lovely grand prize over here on my left, and that will be drawn in the final week, which is at the end of the month. And then over here on my right, I have a ballot box. So for everyone who signs up for the knit-along, I put in a ballot with their name on it. And then each week what we do is have an incentive quiz question, and we pick one lucky winner who will get another ballot put into the ballot box. So that doubles your chance of winning the grand prize. And those colors are very striking too for our butterfly theme. So did you know that butterflies can see only 3 colors, red, green, and yellow? Not something I knew, but that was very interesting. I guess they have to see those 3 colors to identify pollen for their food source. So the trivia question is very simple. We're not looking for the speediest, quickest response. We're just looking for one randomly picked winner for this week. And then we'll put your name in the ballot box. Question is, can you guess how many butterflies are resting around this vine arbor above me? So we do have some butterflies that are just, they've fully transformed and they're resting until they go on to their forever journey. So some may be behind the mannequin and the grand prize. So we're looking just for a simple guess. I'll give you a clue, it's under 20. I didn't want to weigh it down with too many butterflies. And if you want to go ahead and guess and post that in the comments, please feel free to do so. And once the video airs, I will place a comment with the randomly picked winner. So that is everything that we can cover for week 1. I hope everybody's excited to see how their colors take flight, and maybe have some new inspiration about if you're going to put some beads in and try one of the short row techniques that maybe you haven't tried before. So look for the links in the event page for the techniques, and if you have any questions, please feel free to message me or leave a comment. I do read all the comments and try to reply to them. So enjoy your weekend and happy butterfly cowl knitting. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll be back next Friday at 4 p.m.